Hi, and welcome to Radiance and Ritual. My name is Sarah Jade, and today I'm really looking forward to presenting a conversation with a good friend of mine, Sarah Zandbeek, who is an incredible mama of two. She's also an acupuncturist and yoga teacher trainer, and we're going to dive into a conversation around the path of motherhood. That we've both been walking together. I'm a few years ahead of her, but she's got two little ones. So we both have, I'm sure, some unique perspectives to share, as well as some of the overlap of rearing girls in 2021. So without further ado, I welcome my dear friend, Sarah Zandbeek. Yay. Okay, 1 second here. I'm just going to unmute you. Hi.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you for having me.
Oh, you can't. So nice to have you. I'm just getting used to like playing with the muting and what's happening. It's just, yeah, conversation in a whole etheric level with some technical skills required. Lots happening. The master multitaskers, so we can do it all, right?
Yes, yes. Throw the children out the back so we can do this in the
Focus,
front.
like, yeah, just getting the 1 hour immerse. Let's dive in. So maybe we could just start with having you introduce yourself and yeah, just kind of maybe introduce yourself, how you kind of stepped onto this path of motherhood, and yeah, anything that you want to open up and share. Would love to hear from you.
So, as SJ said, my name is Sarah, and yeah, I've been a mama. My oldest is 4, so I've been a mama for 4 years now, and my second is just about 1. So I'm just starting the dynamic path of having 2 human beings to take care of, which is so much more wild than 1. And yeah, we're just getting to that sweet spot where I mean, I shouldn't say understanding, because as you know, parenting just continues to unfold in a way that you can not possibly understand or plan for. But I feel like it's starting to come to a place where I don't feel completely like I have no idea about what's happening, and I'm starting to understand how to split my attention a little bit better, which is something I'm not very good at as generally as a person. So that's, I would say, where I'm at right now, and I feel super grateful that I started I guess we can call it a spiritual path, or started paying attention to myself um, much longer or before having children. So I feel like the yoga um, and meditation and mindfulness tools and things like that have been so helpful since becoming a mom. And I'm happy I have 10 years in the bag before I became a mom, so that when things are coming up and all of it's happening, and it happens so fast and so intensely, that I honestly don't know how moms do it who did not practice some sort of self-awareness practice before becoming a mom, because I don't know, I feel like I would be laying on the floor a lot wondering what's happening. So that's where I'm at right now. Grateful for this practice.
Yeah, beautiful. I can relate to that in a lot of ways, for sure. With a lot of gratitude for the practices, and giving me that kind of like baseline, just grounded foundation to when things kind of started to bubble up, then I could kind of lean back on my tools. But I definitely know that in my path of motherhood, there's been moments where I have been like, oh, I wish I did more in preparation for this. And I mean, I think that's part of like what the privilege and the beauty of being a mother in this time is, that we had access to these practices. Like, I know that my mother didn't really in the same way, just because, well, look, where we are now, we have just so much access to knowledge and support. I mean, we're still kind of, that's still like climbing a little bit of a uphill, you know, battle. I don't use that like word battle, but you know, it's a little bit to get to that point where we feel fully supported, because that's, you know, it's still a bit of a challenge for mothers, I think, to really feel supported or reach and ask for help and not being okay. Those are other, you know, areas that we could unpack, I'm sure. But it's just the yeah, the gratitude for having tools, and just knowing that we have so much. I know that I have more than my mother had, and that's kind of like where I feel like my role is in, as a mother to a daughter, you know, is like me kind of having that awareness, understanding where my mom maybe didn't, in some of those ways, or didn't have tools, and having that opportunity to kind of like shift the matrilineal line and then, you know, embody for my daughter so that, you know, she can mother in her ways. So I just love how these tools have allowed me to orient myself as a mother, and then hopefully, you know, even, you know, down the line, more tools
Mhm.
will come. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you know, have had that experience. And yeah, I mean, what is it like now with two? You know, I remember having a little, like having Marley, and you know, that first year being kind of like, when am I gonna get to have my own time? When am I gonna get to, when am I gonna get to have my own time to sit with this? Like I think I had like a moment at about when I was 3 months postpartum. Like I was like, whoosh, like, whoa, I'm tired. Like hadn't even felt my body as my own, really. You're just kind of
It's
in that, you
wild
know.
when you've practiced yoga, right? Yeah, you're, like, used to having this elaborate free time, and then you don't.
It's such a luxury. And you know, even in pregnancy, I practiced a lot, and I felt so beautiful in my pregnancy. I had a great pregnancy, and I know that's not everyone's experience, but it was my experience. And I loved being pregnant. I loved practicing while pregnant. I felt pretty good. Like I found out later on in my pregnancy, so I missed some of my first trimester knowing that I was pregnant, and I wasn't feeling good. I think you recall. And so yeah, I just didn't know what was really wrong with me. So I think I missed like that whole part of not the part of my pregnancy where I wasn't feeling good. And then once I found out I was pregnant, it was like all good. Felt great. Felt great, but a lot of space, right? A lot of quiet, a lot of, you know, lukewarm baths and peace and reading. And then, you know, you have a baby, and it's a whole nother, you know, a whole nother arena. So maybe sharing about your, you know, how practice came back in, if it has it, like what are the self-care kind of practices that you've been able to reach for in nurturing yourself as a new mom, first with Alder, and then, you know, again, second time round with Rumi.
Yeah. I mean, with Alder, I was essentially a single mom. Like, Alder's dad, Steven, lives in Switzerland, and he would come. We saw him every 3 months, basically. So I would be 3 months by myself and then see him for a month, and then 3 months by myself and see him. So the self time was 0. Like, and even when we would see him for the month, like, he wasn't used to being a parent, so he didn't have, and bless him, I'm not, like, in any way, like, he wasn't there. He was there in the greatest capacity he could possibly know how to be there, but because he wasn't used to being in the dynamic of having a child and the schedule and, how things operate, it was, yeah, it was really, really difficult. And so for me, especially being a Pisces who is used to having so much time to myself, and like, I lived, as you know, in the little industrial park. I was the only house there. And I liked it because people wouldn't just stop by to hang out. Like, it was very by myself. And um, so I just spent hours upon hours luxuriating in the depth of myself. And my parents had divorced, and there was a lot of stuff going on that I just, like, before having Alder, I was just so deep in myself and unpacking the mother ideologies and the father ideologies, which obviously I'm still working on, but there was just so much happening. And then when I had Alder, all of a sudden it was like zero time, like to have a shower or to, let alone like that. I think once you get to really know yourself and know how to feel yourself and spend time in meditation, it's such a beautifully luxurious space to bathe in. And then all of a sudden you don't get that anymore. It's like almost felt like I didn't lose my identity, but I felt like I didn't have like this, that, I don't know, that like time to connect with myself. It's like I broke up with myself for a little bit somehow, and there was a part of me that's like, but I want to be with you. I really want to be with you. And I think to get to the first child, second child, I think when you become a mom, that's probably, in my experience, was like the most difficult piece, and the part that I like struggled to let go of the most was not getting that time to be with myself and wanting that time to be with myself. And when Rumi came, I actually watched that whole piece disappear. So I don't anymore. I mean, I would love to have time by myself. I would, I would love to have a week off, you know? But I don't, there's not a part of me that struggles with that anymore. Like, I don't struggle not having time with myself. What I struggle with now, so what I think the struggle becomes when you have two, and I'm not sure about three or four, I imagine it just gets a little bit crazier. What I struggle with now, or what the second child brings up for me, is the inability to take my foot off the gas. Like, you just have to be in full mode the whole time. Like, if I stop, even for a day, even for 4 hours, like, this house dismantles itself. The children are like, they look like they were in a forest mud bog with like stuff in their hair, and their clothes are filthy and soaking wet. And everyone's hungry and then feeling really intense because they're so hungry. And there's like, everything is bad if I dare take my foot off the gas for a second. So now I'm really learning how deeply important it is to be grounded, because the second I'm not grounded, it's over. Like, all of it's over. And so I realized at first I was really struggling. So I'm like, oh, I just, and it was all so vata, or so up in the air and not grounded at all. And now that I'm aware of that, the more I can stay really rooted and really solid, and just like keep going and not stop, but in a grounded way. Not stop in not a manic way. Not stopping and being manic, or like make parenting 2+ kids so hard. Whereas if I stay grounded and continue moving, then it's, everything seems to be a lot easier. But of course, learning how to really be grounded all the time for a Pisces has been quite some work for me.
Yeah, so there's almost like with Rumi coming through, like an acceptance, that you just, there's not going to be any time. And then I just had this interesting awareness because how many siblings do you have? Two, a brother and sister?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was just me and my sister, and I was the elder. And I just know, like, with the second, they like always have their siblings. So it's like they never really know alone time, unless they're like a quiet child and they, figure that out on their own. But as far as I've witnessed siblings, like the second one just is very curious about the elder sibling, and then the other sibling's like, oh God, like, because they're used to being apple of mommy daddy's eye and having all the attention. And I remember, I mean, I was probably 4 years old, but I was like, just like, I wanted to lock myself in my room with my books and my toys and not have my sister to barge in. And I just think, like, yeah, having kind of been through that as like a child, and just needing to accept, like, now you don't get any more space. And so I wonder if that's kind of, you knew that was maybe coming for Alder. And so you were just like able to surrender into that space of like, okay, we're just going to be steadily going along with everyone's needs, and I'll fill my cup when I can.
I mean, I think also being Pisces, I'm never ahead thinking of what's happening or what could possibly happen. I don't spend a lot of time there. Not on purpose, just I just for some reason don't think ahead. Which sounds funny when you say it, but I don't think ahead. I don't imagine what things could be like. And I was the younger, or I was the middle child. So I know what you just said. My sister, who also now has two, our kids are both very close in age, and she's been going through a lot of stuff, being like, oh, I understand now. The oldest is kind of like, we took care of you. Now you're a bit on your own because we have to take care of this child, and they have to go through that whole dismantling. Um, Whereas for me, being the younger one with an older sister, it was exactly what you just said. Like, I wanted to be in the room with my sister and exploring with her and a part of what she's doing. And for me, I've had to really work on not being wanted. No, I don't want you there. I don't want you there. And I find it a fascinating dynamic because Alder, my oldest, is pretty much me. She's me. Like, she has bits of Steven for sure, embedded in her in funny little ways, but she's me. She looks like me, she acts like me, she's sassy like me. And so it's fascinating to see me as the older sibling. And of course I have my younger brother, so him and I have a whole other dynamic, and I see a lot of how that all played out, because for me it was the same. He wanted to hang out with me and I was like, go away, leave me alone, I want to be absorbed in what I'm doing. And so it's fascinating to try and like coach Alder through how she can be much more loving than I was as a child who didn't have any coaching. I would be, oh my gosh, so awful to my brother. Like, so awful to him. And I know that I have caused him psychological issues that he's still dealing with today, because I would just be so mean because I didn't know how to ask him to go away. And he's an instigator. So he just wanted to instigate and get a rise out of me. And I would just get meaner and meaner and meaner until it was just saying the rudest things ever. And so I can see that in Alder, these little things starting now that Rumi's older, and so I'm working really hard to try and work with her to say things in a way that is supportive, and also to teach Rumi how to, once she's of course old enough, to like mind boundaries and understand why boundaries are important, and make her sister feel healthier and have the space she needs to be creative, and also teach Alder how it's really important that she acknowledges that her younger sister is just trying to learn, and she's curious and she wants to be in her world and learn from her because she's older. And so I'm trying to teach young children who are actually so smart these relational dynamics, which it's not successful quite yet, but Alder is getting really good at being like, no, I don't want you to have this, but you can have this instead. But Rumi is hardcore, so she's like, no, I want that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's to it yeah, you're kind of like the mediator of the relationships, and it's so incredible, like having the consciousness and the tools to be able to like embody modeling these things, for your children, for our children, right? I feel like it doesn't come with a manual, and so that's where it's like, I feel like motherhood can like really throw you into some of those things where you see it manifesting in your kids all of a sudden, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
it's kind of like this awful mirror, but also in the best way, because it gives you an opportunity, like I was saying earlier, like to break the cycle or to do better, right? Like what you're saying with your brother and you, like I had that similar thing. My sister was a Scorpio, or is a Scorpio. She's pretty tough. I don't know if it caused major psychological damage, but definitely wasn't the kindest older sister at all times. And, I think that my parents' generation, or maybe, maybe you can say, like, they kind of just like left us to like our own devices, like figure it out. It's like, maybe it was kind of like, be kind, and that's good, but it's also, it takes kind of like this, like getting into, and like, and now, and now, and now. And I think it's just, It's like, yeah, like you're co-weaving with them and
Well, what does kindness
embodying.
mean? It's like telling a child be kind. It's like they don't know what that means or what that would look like.
Yeah, exactly.
They're operating on emotional body, which is all over the map. Yeah, I
Exactly.
know we had this chat with my mom, and God bless her because she, of course, did better than her mom did, which I think part of the spiritual path is to do the child work,
Yeah.
right? And so when we start digging in that, I think a lot of what happens often and what I hear about are these like, my mom did this to me and that's why I'm like this, or my dad was inadequate in doing this for me and that's why I'm like this. And we blame these things on our parents. And then we like struggle with our parents for a while. Still do this. So I'm not over any of that yet. But what I try to remember is what you said at the very beginning is like, my mom did better than her mom, and I can do better now, but I can't be mad at my mom for not having tools that we have now because she did a lot better than her mom did. My grandma was awful to my mother. And I just try to remember that. And I also try to teach Alder and make her see that I am a person. I'm like, I'm a person too. Like, I'm going to fail. I'm not a superhero. I suck at sometimes and I'm mean sometimes and I react sometimes because I don't get to sleep properly or I didn't feed myself properly today or I thought it would be a good idea to have a coffee and it wasn't. And now I'm like worked up and yeah, it's hard. And when you try to do better every time, that self awareness, it's like it's such a beautiful practice and it's such a painful practice. And yeah, but more than anything, um, I find it super important just to share the process with her because Alder's super sharp. So maybe not all children can understand, but Alder really understands when I'm like talking her through what I'm going through. And then I give her space to, whenever she's ready, talk through what she's going through. And then we make up a plan on how we're going to try and do better for each other next time. Because what I don't agree with in the parenting world is that we as parents are completely responsible for our regulation. Because I think when you're a parent, it's like your kids can have you up against the wall and you can regulate and regulate. But if they keep pushing, 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 you can't just leave your child alone by itself in a room while you go and take a 10-minute timeout. Like Alder would never be okay with that separation. And I know some kids are, but I feel like children, as much as it is about them learning, it's also about them being aware that they affect other people. And I think sometimes in yoga too, we can get a bit selfish in the sense that, like, I need things to be this way so that I can be Satvik and I can be in my state. And then we forget that all of these needs that we personally have are affecting the community and the people around us. And so I as a parent, teach Alder. I'm like, Alder, you were doing this. Like you were acting in this way and I was doing my best, but you kept pushing, pushing, pushing. So I blew up. So if you want me to stop blowing up, you also need to learn to listen to my words. And if you can't listen to my words, like I'm going to do my best, but we're going to end up in the same spot. Like we both need to change for each other. And I agree I'm being this way and it's not appropriate and it's not how I personally want to respond either. So I am sorry for this. Please forgive me. And can you learn and work on your listening skills because that would make it easier for mama. And I don't know, I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our children are so emotionally intelligent, and especially now with having tools and doing, our work to look at our own emotions and what was kind of suppressed when we were younger by our parents. Like I definitely have needed to do a lot of like inner child work, and actually I'm talking to my friend Mimi next week about tending the mother wound, just on that sidebar, because it is important that we don't, carry this stuff in, or like victimize ourselves or blame, So I think it is really important. And then to have a relationship with our children where it is a relationship, it's a conversation. It isn't like this is the rules coming down on you, and if you don't follow them, like I'm going to get mad. And and that's and then having our children like think, okay, not really talk through it. And so I'm with you with about like talking through when you make a mistake, like modeling mistakes. Like I definitely feel I got the understanding that like mistakes were wrong and bad, like in on all forms. So it was like I needed to be perfect and like just striving for perfection, whether it's to be accepted by my parents or just in in school and in all the ways that manifested. But we're not perfect. Mom's not perfect. Dad's not perfect. Parents aren't perfect. So modeling that we make mistakes and then being able to face them head on and say, hey, look, I made a mistake. Like this is what can I do next time that would feel better, in this situation? Or what could I do differently? And just including, I mean, yeah, like Alder's 4, Marley's going to be 9. Like these are ages of children where there is like a communication piece that they're able to articulate, some, like I said, emotional intelligence. Whereas when they're a little bit younger, they're still very much like, connected to how we're feeling and maybe not really understanding so much of their own emotional capacity. But yeah, I just think that the communication around our humanity is so important. And yeah, and just like modeling that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to get angry, actually. Healthy anger is something that I want my daughter to be able to know where she has an appropriate channel for, rather than like turning it all inward or blowing up, So yeah, we punch pillows and we write stories, or, just kind of get it out, because I think it's important that there are these outlets rather than like your sister or friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Big time.
and
Big
mistakes, right? Like that's how we learn. And especially, on this path of motherhood, like getting thrown into it, um, or
time.
consciously entering, it's
Or both.
still brand new territory. And like I said, we don't have a manual. If the roadmap that was laid before us by our mothers was good, there's still ways in which, we want to, well, there's expectations then, and so it's about kind of laying those down and discern and finding your own discernment and how you want to show up as a mother. And yeah, I just think it's a lot this journey, and it is for the long haul. And so I really like your awareness now with 2 of just like that, like I'm in it and it's steady, and just keeping the maintenance and letting them be.
Letting them be. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. I always heard everybody say too, like you can't treat the same one or the second one how you treated the first one. They require different things. And I think that's what's beautiful about having a spiritual practice and just understanding the importance of presence, because you mentioned self-care at the very beginning. And I think a lot of moms struggle with self-care. And I think often what I've realized self-care is are moments where you're consciously choosing to be present. Self-care doesn't have to be like exfoliating your whole body in a certain direction and putting oil on in a certain way and a certain type of oil, and like all the manicuring stuff that perhaps you did as a single person, which is all beautiful, great stuff that I believe in, of course. But for me, like self-care became actually just being present in the shower. Is that was my first moment where I was like, I need this, I need this, I need some time to myself. Like, what am I gonna do? And panicking, and then just realizing like that's the opposite of self-care. So if I really want to take care of myself, I just need to be present. And I would, in the shower, then I would just close my eyes and I would make sure that I wasn't trying to think of my task list or to-do list and organizing that, but I would just really like, what does the water feel like on my body? What does the temperature feel like? What are the sounds? And just allow myself to be absorbed in the moment. And then what could have been a 5-minute quick shower where I'm like, oh, good, I got clean today, turned into self care, where it was just a moment that was just me, myself, and I. And it was 5 minutes or sometimes 2 minutes, but it was a moment where I got to connect to myself. And sometimes now it's just like a hot beverage. You sit and like take a sip and pay attention to how it tastes. And I'm like, oh, I just like watch myself every time just automatically take a deep breath with a sigh that follows. And it's, I think for me, that's what or self care is now, is just really simple, simple moments.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like choosing the space to luxuriate in, right? I'm going to choose this moment, whether it's drinking my coffee, sitting in the sun. Like I remember that as well as like just getting outside when my baby's young and feeling the sun and then it just allowing that to flood through my body. And it's like, that's self-care. It's taking care of self. That's choosing this to be a moment of self-reverence and yeah, not getting out of it. And I like the idea of like creating the space and and time to luxuriate in. So whether it is like, okay, I'm going to sit with my tea and be present, or I'm going to have the shower in full presence, or you know, even playing with our kids can be a form of self-care when we allow our inner children to come out and play too, right? It's like nurturing that part of ourselves in that way. But I think that we have been kind of shown a little bit of a fabrication of, for commercial reasons, of what self-care is and how to ascribe to it, whether it's getting out to the spa or yeah, bubble baths and whatnot. Those are all beautiful things, but it can be quite a reach, when you have the reality of children on you. Maybe you're single parenting, maybe other parents is at work. It's just like you got to choose to luxuriate in that moment. Otherwise, it's not going to happen
Ever.
ever. So, do you feel like this is like what? Do you have a good community of moms? First of all, like I know in this time it's been really, a bit of a real challenge, to connect with other moms with children of the same age. Like, what a wild time to have young children. But I mean, staying connected, I guess, in this kind of way, virtually and whatnot, on the phone, texting. But do you feel like you have like a support network of other moms?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think take this moment and pause for whoever's listening and just say like it is so important to have mom friends. I was the mom where I was like, I'm not doing the whole mom friend, mom group thing. Like, I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to hang out with all the people I used to and do the thing. And it's not, they don't go together very well, because people that don't have kids don't understand like the chaos of it. Often, I think, like two friends that I had previous to having a baby that are still my friends. Um, in like they still come and hang out. Otherwise, most of the people I hang out with now are moms, and um, a few of my moms have moved away, or one of my moms now her kids are in daycare, and so she's like, "Sorry, I'm not hanging out with kids by myself. Like, not happening." But like right now, my girlfriend Kristen is actually over, and she has the kids out at the park. Um, we've just are illegally hanging out. My sister and I, we illegally hang out right now because we've been hanging out since March. All of us are kind of tucked away in our mom worlds, and then we'll get together because I think children need to see children. And I think it's super important for their mental health and for their growing, and they're learning how to relate to each other, and then they just don't see anybody. And I'm watching now with our kids, they used to just get along seamlessly, And now they see each other once a month. I think we basically hang out and we watch how they like don't really know how to communicate or relate, or it's like, no, I want to do this, well, I want to do that. And it's so fascinating to see, like, they've almost lost that skill because they don't see enough children out and around. So I've been lucky. My sister, our oldest are 3 months apart and our youngest are 3 weeks apart, and so we very much like have walked the path together, and our kids play and they go through it and the whole thing. They call each other cousin sisters and friends. So that's super sweet. But I definitely could use more adult time for sure. And I think it gets harder when you have two. Like when I had one, like it was so easy with Alder. She's such an easy kid, and we would just go, and I could still go to parties and festivals and hang out. And with two, it's just so much more. It makes it way more difficult to just go and hang out with people for sure. Not to mention we're in the pandemic, so we just can't. But yeah, two is much harder than one.
Well, I'm glad that, you're choosing, your intuitive autonomy to connect your children. I think it's really important. Again, it's about modeling, right? Like, I mean, I live in a home where we share our home with another family, which has been such a blessing because she's had a friend sister in our home, through this time. She's a year younger than Mar, but they get along really well. Like, and that's just been, I don't know what it would have been like had we not had that, because my daughter is quite sensitive to crowds. Like she loves school and she has school friends and things like that, but she is a bit on the more socially anxious side. And I think just, like it's if we walk past a playground with like a ton of kids there, like generally she doesn't want to go. Like she's happier just to like stay on the sidewalk and pick flowers, and that's just her nature, which has been interesting for me because I feel like I was kind of in the like I was quite extroverted, and I am an introvert, but I think like with my sister there and stuff, like we were always around lots. I had like 15 first cousins. Like there was always like tons of kids. And whereas my daughter was is an only child, she has first cousins now, but they live far away. So, she just hasn't had a lot of like day in, day out intimacy with other kids. And yeah, just through this time, like she misses her other friends too, and like not being able to see certain school friends or anyone really outside of the bubble. And I think that's just, yeah, it's so psychologically, there's an impact there that is beyond what we can try to comprehend. And I just think we are wired for connection. Our kids do need to play. It's how they stay healthy. It's how their immune system stays strong. You know all this. I'm like preaching to the choir, but it's like, I just want to honor, that choice, and to all, mamas, whatever you're choosing for your children. That's the advice that I give any new mother is like, what is right for you, and what is right for you is right for your family. To just strip away the like Googling of like, what should I do? What are other moms doing? Or what, it's like that noise. I think it doesn't serve what's in front of you, which is the best course of action for your child's needs, given the situation, which we talked about it a little in the beginning. It's like you need to be super adaptable. So any like concept, and it's just about like this energetic listening of, okay, we're going to go to the park with our friends today because I can see that you're losing it. I'm losing it. Like, let's do it, and I just, yeah, want to honor all the moms, for making the choice to just, yeah, do what's right for your family in any given moment. And this moment in time has been particularly challenging. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm wondering, like, because the reason why I asked, like, if you have lots of mom friends, and if you've noticed within your group of mom friends or anyone that you've known that have kind of like stepped into this threshold of becoming a mother, it's like, do you notice like a kind of a through line of struggles that we all have, or like things that we come up against. Like we did mention earlier, like that loss of, or like rearranging of identity. I think that's like a big piece, but anything else that you can speak to?
Yeah, I think, and you kind of just spoke to what I was going to say. And I think what I notice, which is a struggle for a lot of people, is the social noise and the familial noise of, I know my mother was like, thought it was the oddest thing that I would have a home birth. And that second child that I would do that again. Like, she thought that was
Yeah.
crazy. And in my head, I'm like, "You're crazy for thinking I wouldn't do that." You know? And the advice, like, "You need to have your kids in a crib." Like, "I'm gonna buy a crib." I'm like, "I don't want a crib. Like, I don't want that." Or, "You shouldn't give your child a soother," or, "You shouldn't do this," or, "Your baby's feeding too much. Why is your baby feeding so much? You should make sure it's not feeding too much." Like, all of this stuff, I think, is what I most consistently see moms having a hard time with, is because I think naturally your intuition becomes so strong and so clear when you become a mother. Like, it's very easy to decide what's right and what's wrong. And I think because that becomes so sharp, when you hear these "you should be doings," they're like so much more painful and achy and uncomfortable, and you want to do such a good job with your baby and with your children, that that sounding board becomes very actually confusing. And so I think what most moms struggle with is that their intuition is so clear one thing, but then the societal and familial norms of how you're supposed to do something nowadays is just so different. Like, "Oh, it doesn't feel right to leave my baby crying in a crib until it falls asleep, but I'm told that's what I should do so that I can get good sleep," you know? And I feel like that's probably the most consistent struggle. Or, "I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling really anxious and tired, but I need to like take care of my baby. I need to do this. I need to do it all." And the whole like village mentality that's starting to emerge again, that like actually the mom's not supposed to do it all. It's not normal that the mom is doing it all. Like, there's many cultures where the new mom's mom comes and moves into their house and helps clean and cook and do laundry and take care of stuff. And like, I know both my sister and I have struggled with the fact that my mom's like, "Nobody did that for me. You guys are fine. What do you mean you want me to like make a meal for you? Like, no." And we're like, "What?" Like, and so even just like sitting in asking for help, I find is very difficult for women. Even when you can logically understand why that's really important for you and your family, it's hard to see other people looking at you like you're failing because you're not doing it all. I find those are like the main things that I see women struggle with, is this intuitive desire to ask for help, this intuitive desire to keep baby close and give it whatever it needs, and being seen as failing and doing it wrong by normal means is probably the consistency.
Yeah, and just the social feed of like a curated mom, and like you know, it's just that should the noise, right? It's like, well, it should look more like this, and it should be, back on track and all, or whatever that means. And I even think it's so interesting how we reflect on like our mothers. And it's like, well, nobody ever did that for me, so I'm not going to do that for you. I have that on both sides, like mother and mother-in-law. It's like very much, and I think like this is kind of like a thing around grandparents, is like, okay, yeah, I'm going to come and help. I can't wait to be a grandma so I can,
Oh,
hold that baby and love that baby and then hand it back. And it's like, okay, it's like I didn't sign up for another round of like caregiving, like I'm out. And I guess it's just like accepting that, and again, just rallying more of like a community, which, might feel that wasn't in their, arm's reach, or in the same way that it is for us, or was coming again for us, hopefully. But yeah, the like shoulding of ourselves. I know that I've been guilty at that certain age, at certain moments as a mother, and also looking at my daughter and her own development, is perfectly on time, and it's perfectly, that's her, that's her unfolding. But when, we read something and it's like, oh, well, my daughter's not doing that yet. Like, shouldn't she be crawling that? Shouldn't she be doing this? Shouldn't she be not having that soother or whatever the thing is? And it's just like, it's like imposing this questioning on ourselves where we don't, I want to raise our, a conscious generation so that, our daughters come into, if they choose, their path as mothers, to really be empowered in their choices. And I think we're doing a really good job of modeling that. But yeah, just to kind of like, no more noise, not a shadow of a doubt. Like, this is what is right for what's in front of me, my children, my body, my health, and so I think that it's exciting time to be a mom right now, because we do have tools, we do have information, we do have the wisdom of our elders and their lives as examples, so that we can, choose how we're moving all of this forward. But yeah, just if I can, same thing. It's like, if I could just embrace all mamas like struggling with those shoulding of themselves, just to like find your center and trust. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long it took you, but it took me, I think, 8 to 10 years of practicing yoga to get my family to just stop asking me questions and when I'm going to start doing things a different way again.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not, certain members of my family have not accepted it. Not accepted that, like, I'm not cut from the same cloth, I guess. Like, it's just, yeah. Just, again, it empowers me really to be an accepting parent of whatever is coming down the line. Like, I'm not here to be an authority to my daughter. I'm here to be a guide, through my example, to the best of my ability. Errors welcome, they're gonna happen, and it's like how I deal with those. Like, you mentioned when you have a conversation with Alder and you make a mistake, or you get angry, or whatever, and you apologize. Like, forgiveness isn't something that was really modeled in my family. It was very much like, oh, okay, we're good now. Like, it just kind of just like get brushed aside. And so yeah, I think that like owning our mistakes. I'm sorry, like, I missed the boat, like, or I missed that one. Like, can you forgive me? And just like, it just needs to be just like that little window of compassion that's kind of evoked in our children, and that I don't think that, yeah, I didn't learn until I was well on my path how important that was, and how much I missed it. Like, how important it is.
Well, and that you had to probably learn how to forgive yourself before you could even think about forgiving somebody else. Yeah, it's wild. It's cute. Like Alder yesterday, she did the whole like, I'm gonna get a different mom. And I was like, are we really here yet? Like, are we actually here now? This is happening. Like, I'm running this ship so intensely, and you're telling me I'm sucking. Like, this is such a bad feeling for me. What? And and then there was a woman walking behind us. We were going into a store and she had a kid, and I'm like, Alder, today's your lucky day. New mom, go. She has a kid, go grab her other hand. Me and Rumi will just do our thing, okay? And she got all like, I was like, well, you have to be careful with your words. Like, your words make me feel a certain way, and I'm doing a lot. And I feel like that was a really unfair comment. So if you want a different mom, go ahead. Go see how that feels. Go see how it feels to live in somebody else's world, and then come back and tell me if you want to go and stay there, or if we're gonna work through this, you know? And then later that day she was like, Mom, you know, do you forgive me for being mean to you earlier today? And I was like, yeah, of course. And she's like, okay, well, do you forgive me? Like, what I did, will you forgive me? And I was like, I don't know, do you feel bad about it? What's going on with you for that you want to be forgiven? And then we just kind of like had that dialogue about like where we are with that and what it meant, and that the when we say sorry, we can't just say sorry and then not change the action. Otherwise you don't mean it. And I was like, so if I was like, a couple days ago you said something kind of like that again and we had a big talk about it and now you're doing it again. So are you really sorry? And I was like, I don't know that I can totally forgive this until you really understand how that makes me feel and where I'm coming from. And you start to decide that you respect me enough or whatever, you realize whatever's happening that I'm a human too, and that you don't actually want to say things like that. That would really hurt me. Because I was like, once I think you really mean you're sorry and you understand, then that's where forgiveness would come from. And I mean, Alder is also again like hyper intelligent, emotional body. So I can easily have those conversations and she'll go and take it for 3 days in dialogue and then or and like think about it. And then 3 days later she'll come and we'll have like a conversation about what it was and then do the true forgiveness moment of like, yeah, that was not appropriate, mommy. I was being really mean and da 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 da. So forgiveness is such a big topic, and I think it's like you said, it just kind of gets brushed off like, "Yep, sorry," and then we just continue to repeat those patterns. So, yeah, it's big work, and these little ones, they have to do such big work, and then the thing that I find a little bit tough is, um and my sister has mentioned this before as well, is just like then they have to go and sometimes be within general public where there's like such a different operating system going on than what they have going on, and it's interesting to watch those two things not come together and to come together in different ways. So I don't know, I'm curious to see how the whole thing plays over in the next 10 years.
Yeah, we're definitely living through a somewhat cruel social experiment in ways, or cruel. We'll just cruel and necessary. It's, it's just been what it is. And we've been so resilient um, as a collective, I think, a collective of mothers, just trying to, yeah, stay centered through it all because it's just been so much. So I hope that moms are offering themselves forgiveness for, those moments where maybe they haven't held it together in the best way, or yeah, I just think it's tough out there. And I think it is so important that we are choosing those moments to luxuriate in, nurturing ourselves in those ways that, perhaps aren't as often available. Sorry, there's a little bug around here. But yeah, and I think like you sound like you're raising, really emotionally intelligent daughters, and they're so lucky to have you as their mom. But it's interesting times, and especially the older they get. And I know that like this is my lived experience now, where my daughter is going to be 9. Like the little, I grieve my motherhood, like little kiddom, like quite often. Actually, I thought that I would have more than one, and so I often am like thought that I would have like another opportunity to, play fairies and make felted crafts and things that I didn't do my first time. Not that I didn't play fairy. Trust me, we still play fairy. But, I really thought that I was going to be like a nature-based mama. I live in the city. I started a business. Like I was quite busy doing it all, wearing many hats in the early years with my daughter, and thought that maybe I would have a second. But, such is fate. I have not. I think maybe I'll get a puppy at some point. But yeah, just grief. I've definitely moved through and continue to move through grief around that. And, because she's going to be 9, 9 is preteen, we're going towards a lot more social influence, a lot more societal, pressures, peer pressure. I hear it like, I really love that we live in the home with the younger girl, because I think that she keeps Marley in her magic a little bit. Whereas when she goes to school and hangs out with her school friends, there's a little like they're talking about boys, and they're like all of that stuff is starting. And I think that, Marley is very, much, still in her innocence, but I have to roll with her, like if she wants to move in that direction, and just holding space. But I definitely feel the like tinges of like, ooh, what's going to happen with this? How am I going to come up? How am I going to navigate that? So I'm just curious, like, do you have any specific fears, I guess, of, being a mom in these times? Or like, is there any challenge within yourself that you're coming up against, or what do you think?
Oh, I mean, I think because Alder is so much like me, the things that hurt me are the things I'm afraid of for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not, I think people would think I'm this way, but I'm not. If I'm getting attacked, I'm not the person that turns into attacking back. I'm the person that like collapses and like goes further and further back into the corner until I can't anymore. And then if I'm still provoked, then it's pretty much game over for everybody. Like a grenade goes off, but that doesn't happen very often. So for me with Alder, and I've already seen it at the park because kids are ruthless, is just she collapses instead of stands her ground really firmly. And I think maybe Rumi's fierce the way she is because she'll teach Alder how to like man her battlefield a little bit better. But Alder collapses and she's really um, imaginative and she's full drama. Like Alder changes outfits 5 times a day and wears like princess dresses and the whole thing, and she could give a crap what anybody else is even thinking about. I don't even think she notices what's going on, but there'll be moments at the park where like a kid will just run up and yell in her face and she'll just completely shut down and like go and like lean up against the wall with her head tucked and like just you can tell she's just hoping they will go away, with like no thought of like how can I do this? Like if Rumi falls and hurts herself or something, Alder like she freezes and like goes the other way instead of jumps in to help her. And so she has that sort of response that a bit scares me, especially for how eccentric she thinks and acts. There's moments when she's in her own world and it's really beautiful and no one's really bugging her, but the moment someone tries to come in, she like just doesn't know how to orient herself. And so I have a really big fear around that, and I'm of course working through it in myself because if you want your child to shift, you have to actually be the one shifting. And so I'm watching the moments where I feel uncomfortable and I have that tendency to want to just like shut down or just be like, nope, 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 and then just avoid it. Like you can say whatever you want, but I'm gonna be just be saying no over here in my corner. And so I'm trying to like instead just learn how to like turn my body to the thing that is like coming at me and like hold myself more grounded and strong and try to learn how to communicate in moments where I feel hyper emotional. And I try to, I guess, speak to Alder in a way that makes her feel like when I'm emotional and she's emotional, that we can learn how to talk somehow there because I do not have that skill. Like when I'm emotional, I'm like, I need like maybe a week, maybe 5 months, maybe 3 years before we can really hash this out in a way that I would personally feel it would need to go, which is crazy amount of time. So I'm working on my in moment um, collapsing and hoping that that will support Alder. But yeah, I have a huge fear. I have a fear of sending her to a public school where that's not what would fit her style of brain. And I have a fear of how mean kids can be and how soft Alder is. And she's Leo rising, so she likes the show. And she every time she changes her outfit, she comes and it's like, Matt, do you like my outfit? Do you like my outfit? And every time she does it, I think it's super cute. But I'm also like, who cares if he likes your outfit or not? Like, do you like your outfit? And so that sort of quality um, comes super innocently to her, and it's like it's so her, like it's her essence is that like the showmanship. And do you like the show? I need you to like the show. And so that scares me a lot.
Yeah. And it's true, right? It's like the things that hurt us or the things that we struggled with. Like, obviously, we don't want our children to have to go through the same things. And also, it's like a testament to our motherhood is like, can we get our children through this without them having that? And of course, like, we can't protect our children from, the harshness of the world, although we'll try, to the ends of our being to do that. But I know it's hard. I mean, my daughter, Mar sounds a lot like that, where, and I think I was like that. It's like, ugh, this is uncomfortable. Like, no, get me out of this. I think especially not having a sibling. And so anytime, yeah, there's just, it's chaos. It's kind of like, yeah, withdraw. And it is like I am, that's, yeah, that consciously kind of like stand your ground. You stand up for people, like not just yourself, like we're trying to like invoke, you stand up for others, like you choose to make, bring in, all the friends are welcome, like, just try to, yeah, create some good good communication around being a conscious leader, not a follower, not fawning at something scary or not, or like uncomfortable. Just also though, like, it's like these kind of dueling ideas, right? It's like, also it's like, if shit's intense, get out of there, right? Like, just knowing knowing how to intuit, like, okay, this is a difficult conversation. Yeah, face the conversation, face the music. You made a mistake, like own it, kind of be there. Or is it like, okay, that doesn't, like that little scrap with your friends, that doesn't involve you. It's time to just like go do something else. So yeah, peer stuff really freaks me out too. Yeah, social media. I don't know. Have you heard about the light phone?
What?
It's called the light phone, and it's basically just like a little phone, and it's got texting and like phone calls. And I was like, oh, maybe this is something. I can make a return to like not having the whole portal of the universe in the palm of your hand.
Oh,
But no, I've also been like, I'm not hiding technology from my daughter. It's obviously like, what a gift that we have technology, because it does give us information and access to many things that I didn't have as a kid, right? And like, that's kind of where it also scares me. It's like, whoa, like, I didn't have this much screen time. I didn't get to watch whatever I wanted on demand whenever, like, that's freaky. But it's just like they're coming in with different hardware, right? Like, they're here to, yeah, be in the tech with the technology and work with it, and it will continue to innovate. And I think I'm not on the side of like push it away and don't engage at all, but I definitely am like, okay, are we losing touch to nature? Okay, too much screen time, like let's reorient. Like, I want her to still have, I think what the problem that I find with screens is that there is like there's that numbingness, the desensitizing. It's like you're only in, like, it's when you're looking at a screen, it's just like your eyes are just drawn there, like there's no what's going on in the world around you. And so I think it is really important to like negotiate, you know different spaces of sensitizing to non-technology, essentially, or like getting out to nature, getting in nature. Like, I have imprints in my nervous system of what it feels like to be like in an open sprawling field and just hearing the buzz of insects and the whoosh of the wheat. Like, I can feel that, I can call on that, right? And now I have to like actively try to create that for my daughter, because it's just not as accessible given where I live. And because she doesn't have that kind of the same way, and the way that the technology is like, she feels bored for a moment, she wants to like watch a show, or she wants to use her device. And it's such a thing to navigate, and it does
great.
scare me. But I'm just trying to demonstrate like the boundaries. It's like, okay, no, we don't bring the phone into the room, or like the dinner table, or these ways to. And that also, like, it's important, I think, to keep and maintain real connections and sense people's energy, and like rather than like just communicating through the device, which has been that was one thing that really scared me at COVID. It's like learning through the device, everything's the device. Now you can't see facial expressions. And so I have some fears around like the long-term effect of all of that, I guess. And then just, yeah, pushing them more and more to be on their device as a form of safe connection, as a form of education, and as a, just like, oh, I really want to keep my daughter connection with spirit, and I hope that she chooses that for herself, you know, and I'm sure she will in her own way. But yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I find for me, it's like I talk a lot to Alder about, and I don't know. I also have to be really careful with like pushing belief, I guess. But when she hasn't eaten food, I'll be like, "Hey, Alder, how are you feeling in your body right now?" And she'll be like, "Ah," or whatever, 'cause she's hungry, and I'm like, "Do you think we could like eat some food, right? Some really healthy food right now, and maybe you'll feel better." And she'll be like, "I whatever," and we'll push up against it, and then we'll eat, and then I'll ask her again, like, "Hey, Alder, how are you feeling in your body right now?" She's like, "Oh, I feel much better, mommy. Probably because I ate some healthy food," with like a major eye roll. And I'll be like, "Okay, cool." And then if she's getting like all round up again, I'll be like, "Hey," and I know that she's eaten. I'll be like, "Hey, Alder, um, do you think maybe it's time for us to go outside? Like, I'm feeling like you're feeling a bit crazy right now." She's like, "Yeah, I probably need to go for a walk." And then we'll go outside for a walk, and she'll immediately, like, her eyes go even bigger than they normally are, and they get super clear. And she's like, "Oh, mommy, I feel so much better now that we're breathing in some fresh air and we're outside." And so I just like try to check her in with that. And like if she wakes up, because Rumi loves to wake up and jump on her, which is so annoying because Alder sleeps in like 3 hours more than Rumi does. And then she'll wake up and be a little bit miserable, and I'll be like, "Hey, Alder, do you think you're a little bit miserable because you didn't get enough sleep last night? Like, Rumi woke you up early, so maybe tomorrow we'll just like stay sleeping and you don't have to worry we're not doing anything fun." And I just like try to get her to check in like that so that she understands. And now it's funny because if myself or Matt are in a mood, she'll be like, "You know what, mommy? Maybe you just need to go outside and get some fresh air and go for a walk because you're being a bit this way right now, and that those things can help you." So I'm like trying my best, and we like registered her in forest school where she goes and spends 2.5 hours outside. Unfortunately, now we can't go because COVID won't let me stay with her because you can only have 10 people outside. So she is still a bit scared to go places without me being there. So we had to cancel. But all of us, me, her, and Rumi, would go to forest school twice a week. And I was in such a healthier mood. She was so much happier. Rumi was like through the roof. And yeah, and ever since then, we just started spending way more time outside, and all of us just feel so much better. And I just make sure to like remind them, like, look at how good we feel being outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And the thing about kids and them being so present is like sometimes what I would perceive as, you know, why is like if I'm like, oh, let's go outside, and, you know, she's engaged in something, or, you know, I need the fresh air. It's like, I need a break. I need to get outside. It's like, okay, let's go. And then she'd like dig her heels in. Like
Oh,
Marley has like a lot of kapha energy. Like she's pretty slow moving in the morning, like a wet blanket, like just like draped. And sometimes, yeah, like the change, even she went to forest school as well. And we actually did a little bit of a time where she was going to her public school, and then we'd pull her out and then she'd go to forest school. And that transition, like the change of scenery was, she would resist it. Just no, and by when she gets to forest school, it's just like wild and you know, loves it. But I think just like there is like they're so present in what they're doing, like, no, this is the best right now. Like I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to. And I would perceive it, you know, as like, why are you, you know, being difficult like this? Like, don't you know that outside is better than inside or whatever the thing is? But it's just that children are so present. and that they love like whatever it is that they're doing, and that is like the real lesson for us, is just to like, I guess what you're doing, it's like checking in and giving them the tools to like, oh, actually I feel like it's time to go outside, like just being able to call that in themselves rather than, being prompted and then prompting it on you, like you said, like, oh, I think you need a little time outside, mom. It's so cute.
Totally.
Aw.
Totally.
Well, I think we're almost wrapping up here, but yeah, just so grateful for having you on to share this sweet conversation. And I'm just curious, like, if there is any, I don't know, is there any advice that you would give to new moms, or yeah, any advice that you would give to any new moms or people kind of stepping onto this path of motherhood? Like, what was the best wisdom maybe that you received that you really live by, or any, yeah, what's your own now embodied wisdom that you feel like confident that you could pass on, that would serve?
Um, what I tell most moms, because I think, like you said earlier, people go down the Google hole and it's not a good place to go. Um, so, a logical thing I like to use is that babies and toddlers are tethered to their mother's nervous systems for 5 years. And if something is tethered to your nervous system, which means they run off of our nervous system. So if mom is scared about something, they will feel that and be scared about that something too.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are sensing as a woman or as a mother and feeling what's happening and what your child needs, because your literally nervous systems are tethered, no one can possibly know better than you, the mother, not even the father,
Mm-hmm.
what that child needs.
No.
So, anytime someone is trying to tell you anything, but your body is saying something else, your body is right.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the only thing you need to listen to. And it comes from science.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that, like, we just celebrated Mother's Day, and that's, great, but there's baggage around like the whole mother, but there is like the beauty of the archetype, and, of nurturing, and the earth, right? Our body is our mother. And so I think even as ourself, just like remembering and recalibrating to the mother, right? This form, right? To have the guidance that we need, the nurturing that we need. Just, yeah, I think really being in communication with our body. And it sounds like you're doing a really beautiful job with your daughters of inviting that somatic intelligence in. And yeah, I think it's so important. And I'm with you with that piece of wisdom. It's like, your body knows, check in with yourself, you know, and stay in alignment with that. The moment that we override that natural kind of instinct and guidance system, that, we're really, it's causing us distress, right? So just trying to stay in that place. Not everything is going to be easy, and it's not always going to be the easy choice to stay with our intuition, but I think it's just so important for moms to just really come into that relationship with trust within themselves, rather than thinking, someone or something outside knows better, for sure.
Yeah. And on that note, too, on the nervous system note, is so if you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed and sleep deprived and like you need a second to yourself, you are not failing as a mother if you do an act that takes care of your nervous system, which might mean you need to separate from baby for 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, in order to reset and regulate and serve your own nervous system. Because baby's attached to your nervous system, this will only serve the child also. And this is where I think the whole village mentality comes in, or even just having a really solid partner who you trust more than anything. Don't have a baby with somebody you don't trust, because all of a sudden you're going to want to have to like protect your baby from its father. So the best you can, try to make sure you have children with somebody you trust, but so that you can feel safe to, when you're feeling overwhelmed, to give your baby to the grandparents or the father or whoever else, your friends that you have close, so that you can really take care of your nervous system, because the best you take care of yourself, it will only be reflected in your child. And stress hormones are not good for breast milk or for the child to feel. I can't hear you, sir.
Creating that cocoon of safety and that baseline, right? That so that they have an understanding of what it is to be regulated, right? What it is to feel calm. Yeah, I think it's yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Even just for new moms out there, or or moms with multiple children, just knowing that okay, I'm going to take this 10 minutes to sit outside. Maybe you give the kids the iPad for that 10 minutes. Like, you're not a bad mother if you're making, that choice to regulate yourself so that you can be more present and loving and hold that frequency of self-trust and grounding for your children. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a
Taking
really an
care of the
important.
earth, as you said. This is the earth, and the earth must be taken care of if it's going to take care of its children.
Yeah. And that, I
That's
think, like, that's such even knowing we're earth, we're nature has its cycles and its season, like embodying that for our children, right? Like, okay, this is when we rest, this is when we recalibrate, this is when we're feeling creative, this is when we express, this is when, and like learning to tune into that in ourself. It's, yeah, listening to our bodies. I think it's so important. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and just taking the time to sit and have this conversation. Really love you and appreciate all of the medicine that you weave in the community and as a mom. So just thank you
same to
so
you,
much.
sir.
Yeah, so good to talk to you. I'm just gonna close out the call and then just hold tight and I'll come say goodbye. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so that is a wrap for today. Such a beautiful conversation with Sarah. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you're a new mom or a caregiver, just remembering to resource these sweet moments of self care. It doesn't need to be grandiose. Listening to our unique needs in any given moment is going to allow us to better show up for our children and yeah, just be adaptable in these changing times. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.